Good morning everybody, welcome to this week's video. This week I'm still in the Lake District on my recent trip. This video is about my little walk. Parked up at Scout Scar and I've walked along to Cunswick Fell, it's called, down to the tarn that's down there and then back up to the car park. A bit of a frustrating day in the end because the cloud never really broke. It was a very, very heavy cloud. There was no real sun, and anytime I saw like even a slight bit of sunlight breaking through, I got excited, but it was so minimal. It turned out to be very frustrating. It actually turned out to prove what the whole weekend was going to be like, which was very overcast and not a lot of sun at all. However, so I have gone out on this walk. I've managed to get a couple of images. They're not amazing, but they're just nice images for being there. So yeah, come along and let me show you what I did. Okay. So I've just had breakfast and headed out for the rest of the morning. So I've gone the other way now from the car park and I'm in this woods, and it's quite an interesting woods, to be honest. Got lots of these sort of white trees, I would say birch trees, and lots of green moss. It's quite a lot of texture, quite craggy. I quite like it, which is really nice. But what I've seen is obviously it's limestone area around here, and there's lots of these dry stone walls, which are really fascinating. But I've just seen this one, which has fallen down. Let me show you. So we have this wall here, which has fallen down, and I really like the relationship in the colour between this fallen wall and the birch trees, the bare birch trees behind it. So yeah, those colours I think are pretty cool. I mean, typical, there's a bit of blue bag rubbish there. It's always rubbish. There's loads of rubbish. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I really like this relationship with the colours. So I'm just going to line up a shot and I'll come back to you when I've got that shot lined up. So let me talk you through me lining this shot up. So the first thing I'm looking for is the intent. What's the story? So the story for me is this fallen wall, this broken wall, and then the story is the relationship in the colours between this wall and the birch trees on the other side. So now I need to compose and frame up. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just looking around different angles to see where I consider the best angle to be for this image. So obviously, as we got closer, as I was showing you a moment ago, there's quite a lot of rubbish and it's quite untidy. It's got this green band. If we get too close to the wall, I think that separates the image too much. So I feel like we need to be back a little bit so we lose that ground. It's just the trees emerging from the wall. I don't know whether to keep this left-hand tree in, this brown tree with the green, just to frame it, and I've got one the other side we could use. But I might go a little bit more abstract and just go for nothing whatsoever. settled on a composition now. So the intent with this image is the things that attracted me to it are the wall that's fallen down, and then it's the relationship between the wall and the birch trees on the other side. The colour, it's the colour that joins them together, and that's the thing that really attracts me. That's what I really like. So the story I'm trying to tell is the fallen wall with the trees behind it. Well, actually the story is the fallen wall, but the trees behind it bring it together and give it some form of interest and some form of artistic imagery. So framed up. It took me a while to just kind of work out exactly where I wanted to be, what height I wanted to be at, and how to get everything in. So I was exploring between whether doing like a 4:3 crop or even a square crop or 1:1. I do like a square crop, but yeah, so I was exploring the different crop ratios. As I'm framing up the wall, I'm making sure that that on the edge for the frames, that the wall finishes nicely. So I'm not cutting a rock off in the middle, or I'm not on the edge of a rock too much where it's pulling your eye out of the frame. So I've tried to frame it in a way that the wall finishes on each edge, but it holds you within the image. And I really like in the bottom these fallen larger parts of limestone, which really draw you into the image. So I really like that. It's really important to be careful of really checking your image once you've taken it, because I found once I'd taken it that these two bushes in the foreground, really young saplings, they were just poking into the edge of the frame and distracting me. So I didn't see it initially when I was composing the image, because the aperture is quite wide when you're shooting live view. There's no aperture in place, but as soon as you set your aperture, which in this case I'm using f11, as soon as you do that, everything becomes much more sharp and in focus, and it actually pulled them into the image. So I checked that, and then I've just spent some time just gently moving them out of the way, so I can get a nice clean shot. Hi guys, excuse me interrupting, but if you like this video, do me a massive favour and hit that thumbs up, and do me an even bigger favour and hit that subscribe button. That's really going to help me and the channel grow. Thanks guys, enjoy the rest of the video. So the cloud hasn't broken yet, but it is looking. I saw a little bit of light hitting the mountains over to the left of me. I don't know if you can just see it through the trees. So I'm going to head back to where I did this morning for sunset. And currently now I'm just walking along this path, and there's a chronic tarn, I think it's called, down here on the left. So I'm going to head down to the water, if there was any there, and see what that's like. I'm sure that would be quite interesting. Yeah, it's a nice Sunday. There's lots of people out having a walk with their families and their dogs. It's nice to see. So as you can see from this footage, when I got to the tarn, it really wasn't that interesting. There wasn't a lot to shoot. The light was very dull. So yeah, so I spent a little bit of time there, and then I packed up and headed off through the woods back out towards where I came from. So I've just come away from the tarn where I was shooting. Come out of the woods, and we've got this big vista view into far lake district in the background, and there's some sun just coming through the cloud. The cloud is really heavy, so I'm surprised anything's coming through at all, but there's a few bits just lit up. So just having a look through. I'm using my long lens just to zoom right in and focus down, and I found this image. So we've got we've got a white house in the bottom left corner, and then we've got a pointy peak in the mid-ground, and then in the far ground we've got lit mountains. I just like the way it all undulates and it all works together with that heavy sky. I think is quite nice. So as we look at the edges left and right, you can see this mountain here is just starting to, in the mid-ground, is just starting to get bigger. And I feel that could pull us out the image if we're not careful on the right hand side. And kind of the same on the left. So because they get higher, if we can place them where we want them perfectly either side, then they will almost point us down in towards the image. It's a bit too far on the right because we can see it's just overcrossing and it's a bit complicated. So we're just gonna do that. So it's kind of at the intersect point. And it's kind of the same on the left as well. It's just kind of where the background and the mid background are all intersecting. I quite like that. I do like what the sky is doing. It's a very still day. Some people might be tempted to do a long exposure. I'm not sure you get much out of a long exposure, to be honest. Okay, so So let's just check our focus. I'm going to focus on the house. There. Okay, so we're shooting manual mode, ISO 100 on the tripod, of course. We've got FE11 and we're shooting at 100th of a second. Okay, so happy with that. So let's get the remote. Oh, now we can see more sun coming out. Not where we're shooting, but it's coming out on the left. So let's check the histogram. Yeah, fine, perfect. Okay. Thanks for watching the video. As you can see from the footage and the pictures, it was very overcast, it was a very grey day, so it's frustrating, but I made the most of it. It's just nice to be out and about sometimes. So join me on the next video where I continue my Lake District trip, and I'm off to Westwater. See you soon.